Welcome to my makeshift YouTube studio. It's very profesh, isn't it? I am the worst YouTuber ever. I was out for dinner with some friends of mine on Sunday night, and we were talking about getting older. And one of my friends has a lot of longevity in her family. I don't have that. I've talked about it before. My parents have died at 43 and 63. So my perspective is a little bit different, but some of the things that we talked about were really interesting. And the way we talked about getting older, my friend with longevity was squarely in the camp of getting older sucks. And for valid reasons, which I'll share, I don't actually know how I feel about it because I don't have longevity. So time is not on my side. No, it's not. And for me, getting older is better than the alternative because that feels much more real to me. Anyways, so I thought that I would chat a little bit about that and get your perspective so that maybe you can help me and everyone else listening to this square away the idea of getting older and being okay with that. So let's talk about this in pros and cons. And let's start with a con. And a big con is just the physical degradation of your body, which again, my parents didn't live to a very late age. So I didn't get to see them digress as a lot of people do. So for me, it's not natural to watch someone digress. And my mom was the oldest one in her family. My father wasn't really close to his family. So I didn't see examples on my parents' siblings of what aging looked like either. So let's be honest, like getting older physically, there's not a good selling point to that. Your fitness goes away, your energy goes away, your muscles start to decay, I find. And I still work out like almost daily, but I notice that I'm frailer looking. You get sick more often. It takes more time to recover when you do get sick. And your health starts to become like front and center in your life. And I'll be completely straight up with y'all. When I was younger, I had the cheeky belief that, if you just ate like a vegan diet and did yoga, you would, I don't know if you'd live forever, but you would live a healthier life until you died. I was so cheeky and obnoxious to think that because, well, I haven't maintained a vegan diet. I am largely plant forward and I do yoga still, and I am still falling apart. So no one is immune to this stuff. So I don't think there's much to say on the physical downside of getting older. But a pro of getting older on the opposite side is the not having as many F's to give. And I mean, that can straddle on the pro and con side, and I'll break that down as well. But I think it's largely a pro because you stop caring about things that don't matter. And when you stop caring about things that don't matter, your life becomes less dramatic and less about what other people think or what other people do, because you realize you have no control over what people think or do of you or of themselves or anything, right? You start to realize that the things that are out of your control are out of your control, and you just kind of have to not care. And I think that takes age and wisdom to get there. On the flip side, if I were to put something in the con bracket for not having any more F's to give, it would be that I now see my life very differently because I have given up caring about things that either don't matter or that I have no control over. And when you do that, you start to realize how much time, energy, and just attention and heartache you spent on things that truly don't matter. And it's humbling. It's like, wow, did I ever waste a lot of time and energy, like cognitive, mental, spiritual, psychological energy on shit that just does not matter? And that can be humbling. Yeah. And it shows up, right? Because it shows up in the things that you no longer do because they don't matter, and the people that you no longer associate with because you realize it's not worth it, right? And then your life feels like it's getting smaller, but it's actually not getting smaller. You become, I'm reading Lit by Mary Carr. It's a great memoir, by the way. And she has this phrase where she describes maturing as coming closer to the face, meaning being your true self, taking the mask off and being closer to the face. I've got to find that quote because it was beautiful. And I feel like as you become closer to your own face, you realize that the relationships in your life that truly matter are actually very few. And the things that you do in your life and the things that you have in your life and the things that you spend time, energy, and resources on in your life, there's very few things that matter at the end of the day. And you kind of have to have a moment for all the time and energy wasted on the things that really didn't matter. So that I would put on the the con side. But overall, I think having fewer F's to give and have whatever those remaining F's are, you're giving them strategically to the things that truly matter. I think that is definitely a pro. Here's another pro that y'all might not agree with. And this is a pro for those of us who don't necessarily have a lot of longevity in our life. You realize how precious time truly is. And you, much like I just mentioned with the not giving any F's anymore, you are far more careful with it. And as you're more careful with it, you realize that it only makes sense to do things that bring you joy. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was younger and I thought I had a lot of life ahead of me, I still do. I'm sure I have some life ahead of me. I'm not dying tomorrow. But when I was much younger and I wasn't thinking about these sort of things, I was always thinking, I should do an MBA. I should get resourced in this, or I should get certified in that. I was always trying to make myself more desirable, like build myself up, both from an employment perspective and just in I got to prove myself perspective. That completely goes away when you get older. I have no desire. I have like an undergrad and a master's degree. And I don't regret getting them. And for some reasons outside of work, they were helpful. But for the most part, they just helped me think better and finish assignments and maybe think critically, which is something I wish more people did these days. Outside of that, they didn't really serve me that much. So I would never pursue higher education again unless it was something that I was just like profoundly curious about. And I have no desire to spend some crazy amount of money on tuition to get a piece of paper that says I'm certified in something I don't care about being certified in, even if I care about the topic. So I think that's why, education for the sake of enjoyment and curiosity is learning in its purest form. And that is a beautiful thing that happens when you get older. Coming back to a con of getting older, and this one's Captain Obvious, but I want to unpack it a little bit more than just surface level. And that is how, as we get older, we become more irrelevant. And I think that's true on a number of levels. When you stop working, your relevance and importance in that domain goes away. And I question how important we really are when we're working anyways. We just think we're important, but we all know that everybody is replaceable. So we're really not that important. But that feeling of importance is there, which is almost the most important part of the whole thing. So when you no longer have that, you no longer have that feeling of importance and people needing you. And that's the internal experience of getting older and how you perceive yourself as having less importance or significance in the world. But the other reality is externally, the same thing is happening. As we get older, especially in the workforce, and I worked in Silicon Valley in like the tech area. I'm not a techie, but I worked in tech. And it is not a word of a lie that the older you get, the less significant you become. And I'm not talking about older in the way of your 50s or 60s. I'm talking like in your 40s, because the average, tech CEO these days is barely out of diapers. So the perceived relevance of who you are really does start to diminish, I would say, in your mid 40s, and then just continues to go down from there. That might not be true in all industries, but in tech, once you've hit your 40s, you're overpaid and not as up on the latest things as, the young up and comers. And there's some truth to that, right? And the older you get, the less inclined you are to work for less pay, because you do have all these other wonderful skills and, soft skills around like being mature and being able to manage people and being a leader. But I find that those things are being less and less valued in tech anyway. So your value diminishes and getting a job becomes harder. I've got several friends who are my age that are not in a position to retire, and are feeling the pain of trying to get a job as someone in their early to mid 50s. And in some cases, having to dial their expectations way back. Like, I remember when I hit, let's say, the pinnacle of my career, which lasted 3 months. This is when I was reporting directly to a CHRO. I was on a leadership team of a very prestigious tech company. I had my own office. It was waterfront. Like, I thought I had hit the bing jackpot, only my boss was actually certifiable crazy. And I quit after 3 months. But I also remember two things that really stuck out to me in that short time. Number one, there was another man on the leadership team who was in his early 60s, and the CHRO was pushing one of the HR directors to let him go. And they wanted him to stick it out to retirement because that's what he wanted. But she was just like, no, he's got to go. He's a weak link on this team. And she was probably around my age, this woman. She was just like awful person. Everybody hated her. But anyway, she was like so quick to fire that guy because he was in his 60s. So he was not reflecting well on her in terms of her leadership team. And then the other really significant thing that happened in the short time that I was there, my old boss, my first real significant boss who I had reported to at the early point of my career, we had a rocky start, but we ended up really clicking, and I respect him very much. Once he hit, I would say, his 50s, had a very difficult time finding long-term employment. And it was interesting that when I was in this role of my quote unquote dream job as a director, he came into the office to have an interview for a senior marketing manager in a different department. But he also came into my office just to visit with me. And here he was sitting across from me at my desk. And I have exceeded him in, stature and probably pay. And not because I'm smarter or more efficient or anything like that, because this guy was super smart, but because he was older than I was. And he had stopped getting opportunities as a result of that. And it was humbling for me because I knew that I'm not special. I'm just not his age yet. And yeah, I don't think he ended up getting that job because the marketing department was very young and he would have been the grandpa of it. But he was a smart guy and it was their loss. And that was just another indication of the fact that as you get older, you become more irrelevant, both from an internal experience and how you're perceived from the outside world. And that's just the facts. So those are just a few pros and cons that I have. And there's actually a lot more I could get into, but I would really love to hear what you guys think are the pros and cons of getting older. And overall, do you think it sucks or are you happy to get older? I want to leave it on a high note though. And one thing I would also say about getting older is you grow into such a different version of yourself, which has to do with a lot with what I've already said about, not giving Fs and spending less time on things that don't matter. But there's also this awakening of a new personality. And somebody I follow on Substack was writing about this the other day, where she surprises herself every day now with new sides of herself that she didn't know existed, where sometimes she would push back or share an opinion that an earlier version of herself probably wouldn't share because of people pleasing or, not wanting to offend anyone. Like, you really do become this more authentic version of yourself, which is not unsimilar to what I've already shared about the pros of getting older. But living through this experience is really interesting if you pay attention to it, because it's almost like going through another version of puberty, only maybe it's puberty in reverse. I don't know, but you really do meet a new version of yourself that in most cases is profoundly satisfying, or at least that's how I'm finding it to be. And I hope that you're experiencing it in the same way, but I think you know what I'm talking about. You definitely meet a new version of yourself. And I feel like I'm sort of in the messy middle of this. I'm not quite who I was in the past, and I'm not quite even sure who I'm going to be in the future, but I've definitely changed a lot and I continue to change. And I just want to continue to watch it unfold with curiosity and fascination rather than self-judgment. So anyway, this is where I'm going to pause and ask you guys, does getting older suck? Yes or no, yay or nay. And I would also love to hear from you. What are your biggest pros and cons to getting older so we can all kind of share that experience? Because if there's one more con to getting older, I feel like we don't talk about it enough and it can feel a little bit lonely as a result because we don't necessarily say to the people around us, like, have you noticed this about getting older or that? We just complain about things that hurt and the new medications we're on. But there's so much more to it. So I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. Let me know if you want to hear more. And I would love to hear your insights. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.